She was considered the most beautiful woman in Paris, wealthy, powerful, and surrounded by influence. Every man with a title or ambition wanted her. And Napoleon Bonaparte, a rising military genius who would later conquer much of Europe, wanted her obsessively, Josephine de Beauharnais. He wrote her letters filled with obsession, almost madness. I wake up thinking only of you. Your image and the memory of last night's intoxicating pleasure gives my senses no rest. He begged, he pleaded, he poured his love out like a man drowning. She ignored him for days. She took other lovers. And when she finally replied, her responses were cold, short, and distant. The more he chased, the less she respected him. Until something changed. Years later, after he became emperor, after the balance of power completely reversed, Josephine became the one writing desperate letters. She became the one crying at his feet, the one terrified of losing him. What changed was not his status, not his uniform, not his crown. It was one thing, one psychological mechanism so simple it almost feels insulting. And yet, 99% of men will never apply it, because their ego cannot handle it. That one thing is this: your willingness to lose her, not as a tactic, not as a game, but as a deep truth embedded in your nervous system. Read that again: your willingness to lose her. This single variable decides whether a woman respects you or merely tolerates you, whether she sees you as a man she must earn or a man she has already conquered. Most men hear this and think they understand it. They believe it means acting uninterested, playing hard to get, or pulling back strategically. No, those are performances. And performances collapse under pressure. The moment she tests you, the moment she pulls away, the moment she flirts with another man, your mask breaks. She sees the desperation underneath, and her respect disappears like morning frost. True willingness to lose is not a behavior. It is a state of being. It means you have truly made peace with the idea of her walking out of your life. You have already accepted the worst-case scenario and decided that you would still survive it. You have emotionally imagined her leaving and realized that you would still be standing afterward. This is not nihilism. This is sovereignty. And women can feel the difference deep in their bones. There is a story from 16th century Italy that explains this principle better than any modern example ever could. Baldassare Castiglione, the author of The Book of the Courtier, described a strange pattern he observed in the courts of Urbino. The men who received the most attention from women were rarely the most handsome or the wealthiest. They were the men who practiced what Castiglione called sprezzatura, a calm, effortless ease, a studied carelessness that suggested they could take or leave any outcome. One duke in particular became famous for his effect on women. He would speak with a noblewoman, make her laugh, create clear chemistry, and then politely excuse himself to talk with an elderly ambassador about grain tariffs. Not to play games, but because those grain tariffs genuinely interested him more than winning her approval. The women of the court became obsessed. They could not understand how a man could be fully present one moment and completely indifferent the next. They interpreted his lack of interest as proof of hidden depth. They competed for the attention he freely withdrew. He never chased. He never explained himself. He never apologized for his priorities. And he never lacked female companionship. The lesson Castiglione drew was precise. The moment a man needs a woman's validation more than his own sense of direction, he gives up the psychological throne, and no woman wants a king who has stepped down. Now let me explain why this works at the neurological level. The female brain is wired to evaluate one thing above all else: real options, not claimed options, not performed options, real ones. When a man is truly willing to lose a woman, his behavior changes in tiny ways he cannot fake. His eye contact lasts one beat longer without desperation. His voice drops slightly because it is no longer straining for approval. His body language opens toward the room instead of closing in around her. These signals are invisible to the conscious mind, but overwhelming to the limbic system. Her brain receives a clear message. This man does not need me. This man has alternatives. This man's life will not fall apart if I leave. And strangely, this is exactly what makes her not want to leave. Because scarcity creates value. What can be lost feels worth keeping. What cannot be lost feels worthless. The desperate man sends her thousands of tiny signals that she is the only woman in his world. She becomes the sun, and he becomes a cold rock revolving around her warmth. This sounds romantic in poetry. In real life, it creates contempt. Why? Because if she is his only option, she begins to question his value. If he is willing to place his entire existence beneath her, what does that say about his existence? If no other woman wants him, why should she? The man who is willing to lose her tells a very different story. His calm shows abundance. His ease signals that she is an addition to an already full life, not the desperate completion of an empty one. His willingness to walk away shows that he has walked away before, will walk away again, and knows he will survive. This is not cruelty. This is biology responding to strength. Here is where most men fail. They understand the idea in their mind, but they cannot live it emotionally. Their body exposes them. They say they do not care, but their eyes search for her reaction. They claim they have options, but they reply to her messages within 30 seconds. They tell themselves they are willing to walk away, yet they have already planned their weekends around her availability. The gap between what they say and what they project is felt immediately. Women have evolved over millions of years to sense this gap. A woman who could not tell the difference between real strength and fake strength would have chosen weak protectors. Her children would not survive. Her bloodline would end. You are interacting with the descendants of women who detected weakness the way predators sense wounded prey. Your performance means nothing. Your inner state matters more than anything. So, how do you develop a real willingness to lose her? You cannot force it, but you can build it. The first requirement is a life that does not need her to feel complete. This may sound like common self-improvement advice, but it is not. I mean something very specific. Most men build lives that are secretly waiting for a woman to complete them. They have a career, hobbies, and friends. But at the center, there is a psychological emptiness. A quiet belief that all of this is just preparation for the real thing. The relationship that will finally make life feel finished. Women sense this emptiness. They feel it in the way he looks at them, not as a person, but as a solution. Not as a woman, but as the final piece of his puzzle. And they pull away. The man who is truly willing to lose her has no such emptiness. His life already feels whole. She would improve it, enrich it, and add new dimensions. But she would not complete it. The structure is already standing. She is not the foundation. She is the decoration. This is not about having hobbies. This is about having purpose, direction, a reason to wake up in the morning that has nothing to do with female approval. When your life has that kind of weight, walking away from any single woman becomes not just possible, but sometimes necessary. Because protecting that life, your direction and your purpose, matters more than any single romantic outcome. The second requirement is exposure to loss. Most men are trapped by the fear of rejection because they have never truly faced it. They have spent their lives avoiding situations where rejection could happen. They only ask out women they already know will say yes. They move forward only when success feels guaranteed. They design emotional safety at every step. And this creates weakness. The man who has been rejected hard, again and again, without mercy, and survived, carries a very different energy. He already knows the worst. He has felt the pain and learned that it does not destroy him. He has rebuilt his self-worth from the ruins and discovered that it cannot be broken. This man enters interactions with women from a place of real freedom, not because he does not want her, but because he knows he will survive without her. There is a Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of loss. You imagine the worst possible outcome in clear detail. You sit with it. You accept it. And through that acceptance, you remove its power. The man who has truly faced the image of her leaving, the image of her choosing someone else, the image of his phone never lighting up again, and has found peace with that vision, is free. And freedom is the most attractive energy a man can carry. Here is what happens when you truly live this. Your entire frame changes. You stop acting confident and begin to project it naturally. You stop trying to impress and allow yourself to simply be experienced. You stop tracking her reactions and start trusting your own direction. Something unusual happens in conversations. You become willing to disagree with her, not to create conflict, but because your opinion matters more to you than her approval. You become willing to tease her, challenge her, and even slightly offend her, because you are no longer afraid of her leaving. And strangely, this makes her want to stay, because she finally meets a man she cannot control. A man whose validation she must earn, not assume. A man who treats her like a human being, not a goddess on a pedestal. Pedestals are lonely. Women quietly dislike them. They want to be met, matched, and challenged. They want a man who sees them clearly, flaws and all, and remains steady. That man is the man who is willing to lose her. But there is a darker side to this idea that must be addressed. Some men will use this principle as an excuse for cruelty. They become cold, dismissive, and emotionally unavailable, and call it willingness to lose. This is not what I am describing. True willingness to lose is not the withdrawal of affection. It is presence without desperation. It is warmth without need. It is care without attachment to the result. You can love deeply and still be willing to lose. You can want her strongly and still know you would survive without her. These are not contradictions. They are signs of emotional maturity. The man who uses this principle as a weapon is not strong. He is wounded. He is not detached. He is avoidant. He is not sovereign. He is afraid. Women sense this too. Coldness born from fear feels very different from warmth held lightly. The goal is not to care less. The goal is to care from strength, not from desperation. To love with open hands, not clenched fists. Return with me to Napoleon. When he finally stopped chasing Josephine, it was not a tactic. It was a shift. The wars demanded his full attention. His purpose consumed him. He stopped writing frantic letters, not because he planned to, but because he was building an empire. And suddenly, she noticed his absence. The man who once begged for her attention was now unavailable. The man who once cleared his schedule for her now had real priorities. The man who once worshipped her was now focused on something larger than their relationship. She began to chase. She became the desperate one. She wrote letters begging him to return, to forgive her, to look at her the way he once had. He did not become cruel. He became complete. This is the ultimate paradox of attraction. The moment you become truly willing to lose her is the moment you become hardest to leave. Not because you manipulated the outcome, but because you became the kind of man who does not need to manipulate outcomes. A man whose center stays steady, no matter who enters or exits his life. A man whose life is an invitation, not a plea. Women respect this man because respect moves toward what cannot be easily shaken. They are drawn to him because attraction flows toward what does not chase it. They stay because they finally see a partner, not a project, an equal, not a supplicant. So here is the question I will leave you with. Not whether you understand this principle. You do. It is simple enough for a child to understand. The question is whether you have the courage to live it. If she left tomorrow, if she never spoke to you again, who would remain? If that man is not enough for you, he will not be enough for her. But if that man is solid, if that man is whole, if that man needs nothing from anyone to stand upright, then you have already won the game. Most men do not even realize they are playing. She is not the prize. You are.